Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kendamil's healthcare YouTube channel. My name's Stephanie, and I am a pediatric dietitian and the healthcare manager for Kendamil Infant Brands. Today, we are joined by Jessica, who is the owner of Baby Food and Fun. Jessica is also a pediatric dietitian, and she has tons of years of experience. And today, we're going to be talking about a really exciting topic that I think will be beneficial for not only healthcare professionals, but parents as well. And that topic is transitioning to milks when your child is at the appropriate age. So we're going to dive right in. So when should, parents really start thinking about transitioning to milk for their baby?
So when you're looking at transitioning to cow's milk, you want to look at around the 1 year, 12-month mark.
Okay.
And you really don't want to do it before then for a few different reasons. One in particular, cow's milk actually doesn't contain enough nutrients of certain nutrients that babies need. For example, iron. So a 6-month old, it seems kind of silly, but a 6-month old has different needs for iron than a 1 year old. So that's one reason. Another really big reason is actually the protein makeup of cow's milk. It's a little bit different than, let's say, our human breast milk. So there's two different types of proteins in cow's milk and also in human breast milk as well. And that is casein and whey. So in breast milk, the whey ratio is much higher. And that's a really important thing because whey is actually easier to digest. So when you are digesting whey protein, it actually stays a liquid. And so therefore it's easier to digest. So human breast milk actually contains around 60% whey. So that, is a pretty good amount. That's pretty easy to digest. Cow's milk only contains 20%. So there's the difference. On the flip side, that other protein I was mentioning, casein, it's a little bit harder to digest. So when you're digesting it, it kind of curds up, curdles, that kind of a thing. So again, we see those ratios are so different, right? The human breast milk is going to have around 40%. Not great, I guess, if you want to say in terms of digestion, but when you're looking at 80% in cow's milk, that's a big difference.
Yeah. Well, and two, probably mom's casein is designed to be better tolerated than what we would see in cow's milk.
Yeah, honestly, that's a really, really great point because we're finding a lot of more research is coming out about different types of casein. And so I think that that's a really going to be a really interesting thing to watch out for. In particular with cows, it's a mixture of what we call A1 and A2 casein proteins. So they are they're a little bit harder to digest. The A2 in particular are actually easier to digest. Based on the ratio, though, that's, I guess, why you would say cow's milk is a little bit harder.
Got it. Okay. So I guess, is it typical then for parents to start just with cow's milk, or like what should they start with, I guess?
Yeah, so let's kind of walk through what you would do when your baby hits that 12-month mark. I think that that's going to be the best way to do that. So I'll use my son as an example because he turned 1 last year and we just did this. So we celebrated his birthday. Yay. Around that week, he was formula fed. So we started that transition, and you want to do it slowly and gradually. There's no reason to jump right in, if you will, because again, formulas are also designed to be similar to breast milk, right? So that ratio in formula is often going to be similar. So again, we're going to see that drastic difference. So that's why we want to do this gradually. So usually what I recommend is what I call a step ladder approach. So on day 1 and day 2, maybe even day 3, I would give my son, let's say 75% of his bottle, or let's say 8 ounces. So 6 ounces would be formula, And then I would just add that little bit of cow's milk. And I'd see how we do. All was good. We didn't seem like we were having, tummy troubles or anything. A couple days later, you can add 50%, 50%.
Oh,
Yeah, again, kind of see how we're doing. And there's no hard stop on this. So if you notice that baby might be having, upset tummy or something like that, well, you can, stay at that step for a little bit longer, let baby adjust. Because I think that that's a big thing is it is a difference. You know what I mean?
right,
in that.
right.
So I think allowing our babies to adjust to that is fair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's say you're 50-50, you're all good now, and just again move on next. So 25% formula breast milk, 75% cow's milk. We're all good. Ta-da! Now we have
And now you're 100% cow's milk. Yeah. So, okay, that does make sense. So I think that's probably really good for parents to know too, that like they don't just have to go from breast milk to cow's milk or formula to cow's milk in like a day. So there's like a nice transition period. What if they can't tolerate cow's milk? Where do we go?
Yes. So obviously that is a concern. For the most part at this point, if your baby is not going to tolerate cow's milk, my guess is you're going to know. And here's why I say that is because again the formulas do contain the same kind of proteins. So from that standpoint, you're at least going to have hopefully an idea going into the, hopefully it's not a total surprise all of a sudden. So that's one helpful thing. So number one thing I would recommend whenever you're getting kind of close, let's say your 9-month appointment, start those conversations with your pediatrician. Some pediatricians are going to recommend going ahead with a certain, plant-based milk and then making sure you get nutrients in elsewhere. It's kind of, dependent on your plan.
Okay.
Overall, though, it's important that you do develop that plan with your pediatrician because, for example, like soy milk does not contain the same amount of nutrients as cow's milk. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Things, yeah,
it's not a even swap. Yeah,
correct. So definitely going to be things that you really want to get your pediatrician in on.
Okay. And like, I guess, how common is it for a baby to have a react? Because I know that you just said, if they want to do soy, it's not the same, but I guess if their baby has a reaction to cow's milk, what are the chances they're also going to react to soy milk?
Yeah, actually it's pretty high. So oftentimes we have found that if a baby has true cow's milk protein allergy, up to like 10 to 14% of those cases also, show signs of soy allergy. So that's definitely not, typically our go-to. Even in formulas, that's why we don't usually recommend those soy ones right away. I would definitely develop that plan with your pediatrician. Again, maybe it is appropriate for you to use a plant-based, milk in that place. And then again, kind of substitute with other foods. So, other good fat foods could include avocados, fish, nut butters, some oils, things like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So definitely, but it's a plan, you know what I mean?
No, for sure. Because really, if you're not going to do the whole milk, you're going to be missing out on the fat component.
Yes,
big time.
I feel like the fat and the protein are probably some of the biggest. But even some of those micronutrients, cow's milk is not going to contain the same, think about dairy doesn't have the same nutrition as a peanut. So it's
good point.
Gonna different things.
Yeah, no, that's really good to think about. So at the 9-month mark, start having a talk with your pediatrician and kind of like the plan for when you transition. Okay. Well, I feel like this is another big question that parents are probably thinking about. What if their baby doesn't like the milk and they just, want to stick with what they've been doing for a year. What do we
Yes.
do?
Yes. It's funny because I knew we were going to have this talk, and I actually was just out to dinner with some friends, and she was saying her little one is experiencing this right now.
Oh, yeah.
So we were discussing different things that she could try. She has tried some. And one thing we have found is that he only likes milk if it's warm. So that might be something to consider. Is there a temperature difference, right? I know I
Okay.
serve my formula cold to my child, but oftentimes I grab the cow's milk and it is cold, right? It's right out of the fridge.
Good point.
So that could be something to kind of play with. Um, Again, don't use a microwave. Side note.
Yep, yep.
Bottle warmer or something along those lines. You could stick it in a warm, cup of water, if you will, and kind of warm it in that way. Another way is just, what about a different kind of serving utensil or whatnot? Does baby do well with a straw or maybe an open cup? I know,
Okay,
I
yeah.
know, I know, I know it's a mess. But
Yeah.
different things like that could definitely be something to kind of again play around with. If
Okay.
baby is still like, no, I am not having this, you don't have to necessarily serve straight plain milk all the time. Why not add it into a smoothie
It's a
or
great idea.
something, yeah, like popsicles, some frozen cream, something like that.
Right.
That way you're still getting the nutrients.
But it's not just like straight cow's milk.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully maybe adding some, pureed strawberries and making it a little smoothie, maybe that'll just do the trick.
Yeah, that's a really, really good thought. So kind of just like getting creative, thinking outside the box. If
Mhm.
they're not super interested in just drinking the cow's milk.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, I will say that happens. Like I said, I just had a friend, quite frankly, I've got two friends right now whose kids are not that into it. And one has found success with using different kinds of cups. There's one cup in particular. And then the other one, like I said, found success with serving it warm.
Yeah. Huh. No, I mean, hey, every person's different, every baby's different. So that's why you gotta experiment and kind of see what works for yours.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I was mentioning earlier, I think the other thing is, you can space these out throughout the day. So it doesn't have to be a whole huge cup of milk for your kiddo. Because like I said,
Yeah.
like 8 ounces of whole milk, that is pretty filling.
Yeah, so that actually brings up like a really another good point. So, do you suggest that parents should be offering the cow's milk at the start of a meal, at the end of a meal? Like, should we be focusing on getting the solid foods in first and then offering the cow's milk?
Yes.
Like,
Yes, that's an awesome question. Definitely, like I was saying, you want to focus on those solids. So usually what I did with my son, for example, we'd get up and I would serve breakfast. So I would serve, let's say, pancakes, some eggs, and maybe some yogurt. Maybe I do include a dairy there. And then before his morning nap is when I would give him his first bit of cow's milk. So that was different from our formula because, of course, when he was
yes,
still on the formula is the first thing I do, right? So
right.
that's kind of how the easy way that I flipped it is just kind of literally every meal do an opposite, if you will.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. And like I said, to me, the 8 ounces is too much.
It's
at
a
least for
lot.
at least for my kiddo. And my kiddo's a big guy, honestly. So but we would split it into more like 4 to 6 ounces at a time.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about, because I know that you mentioned, getting creative and, making smoothies, popsicles. Are there any good like resources that you recommend either parents or pediatricians turn to when they're kind of at this point and maybe they're like, I cannot think about another thing. I need a recipe that, I could just
Yes.
follow or like a guide. What can we offer?
Yes. Okay. Well, number one, come hang out with me.
Yeah.
Okay. So babyfoodandfun.com does have resources on these things. We've got different ideas that you can do. Especially my Instagram page is kind of where I lived when I was going through this with my kiddo. So you can see live, like as I was going through it and different things I
Oh,
was
that's great.
offering. Yeah. Another really good place to look at is actually it's called Yummy Toddler Food. And it sounds silly, but she has so many recipes. Highly, highly recommends because literally anything you want to make is going to be there. And of course,
Oh,
it
that's
is
great.
very friendly for 1 to 2 especially, but even earlier than that. Um,
Yeah.
and I know we mentioned a couple other ones last time, like Solid Start has really good ideas. Baby feeding coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great that's a great start. I
I
think
feel like
parents
I
are
want to
just
give like
yeah. No, I think that's great. And doctors can also recommend these resources.
Mhm.
Um, and if they have handouts or something, I'm sure that would be super helpful for them as well.
Yes,
But
yeah.
no, I think these tips are awesome and it gives parents a nice little outline and game plan. When they're at this 12-month mark and they're
Mhm.
ready to take that next step and really starting to focus more on the solid foods. And not as much focused on the infant formula or the breast milk, but those are still
Mhm.
important,
Yeah.
especially if a mom still wants to breastfeed. So,
Yes. Yep.
yeah,
That is one thing. If you are planning to continue breastfeeding, obviously that is an option. So, yeah.
great.
Cool.
Well, I think those are all of my questions. So thank you so much, Jessica. I learned so much, and I know that our parents and doctors are going to learn so much as well. And we'll be sure to link your resources after this video.